Hoi hoi gang, if this is your first time with us, welcome, and if you're joining us from a previous video, hey, we love to see it, and I hope you're doing well. It's Season 2! A season that's honestly just a complete and total improvement on an already pretty incredible first outing. We're gonna get several multi-part sagas, one of the best episodes of the entire series, and yeah, just some incredible heat, so it's time to ask those three age-old questions. What worked, what failed, and what tunt nappings will be curtailed? I hope you enjoy the view, because it's time to talk about Season 2! It's our season premiere, and I am very surprised I'm saying this. Look, Swiss Miss is probably one of the best season premieres ever done, bar none. Mallory has brought the gang to the Swiss Alps to hopefully convince a German billionaire he needs ISIS as a security contract. The billionaire is at the Alps for his daughter's birthday party and he wants to keep his precious baby girl safe. Anka would be played by Carrie Walgren. Anka is a loud, overly handsy 17-year-old that tries to act way more mature than she is and is all over Sterling, even though Sterling wants absolutely nothing to do with her because she's underage. I've complained about this in the past, with miscommunication being one of the laziest sources of conflict, but honestly, it makes sense here. Archer is tasked with keeping Anka safe while Mallory tries to seduce Anka's dad. Two twin kidnappers are manipulated by their partner-slash-lover Sia in a somewhat literally fiery and passionate kidnapping scheme. Sia would actually be played by Nika Futterman, aka Asajj Ventress in Clone Wars, which, like, wow. There is just a ton of voice talent that is shared between Archer and Star Wars, and it's just gonna go up from here. Anka keeps coming on to Archer while he keeps trying to push her off, but they keep getting caught in compromising positions, and everyone, honestly, justifiably thinks that Archer is doing it. Turns out, Anka is actually a virgin, and she's totally making everything up to seem cool, and that's when Archer has a heart-to-heart with her. They bond over having absent parents and having to sculpt your identity so that you seem bigger and more important than you feel like you are. That your grandiose personality is just a cover, a front. The episode could air in any order in the season realistically, as it doesn't really have any through lines, but it being the season premiere is just so cool when you think on it. Right out the gate, we see Archer actually setting boundaries. Not only is he setting boundaries, he has a heart-to-heart and opens up to Anka, even if he doesn't realize he's doing it. We understand more about why Archer is how he is. He has to believe he's invincible, otherwise he might get hurt. He has to believe he's the untouchable super spy, because otherwise he might not make it home. He has to believe he's awesome, so that at least someone does. It's beautiful in a way you wouldn't expect from a show like Archer up to this point, and definitely not from a character like Sterling, but it sets the tone for the entire season. Growth. We're going to see Archer be much more open and be tested because of it time and time again, but it actually has a payoff to it. Oh, and Mallory and Pam have a threesome with Herr Schultz, who obsesses over Pam because he's certifiably down with the thickness. Swiss Miss is a surprisingly sweet and surprisingly heartfelt 10 out of 10. Mallory is just a little, kinda, smidgen broke, and decides that if she needs money fast, she's got the #1 way to get it. She's gonna romance Len Trexler and sell ISIS to Odin. Barry comes in for a victory lap and agrees to let Lana become the North American region head if she sleeps with him instead of getting fired like everyone else. Archer gets his mind control chip taken out from last season and confronts his mom about it when she tells him she's not even with Nikolai anymore and is genuinely shocked that it happened to him. Gee, sure is convenient the mind control chip got taken out and shown at the beginning of the episode. Yeah, it's, I guess, Chekhov's mind control chip at this point. Just enjoy the ride. And the rest of the episode is the gang trying to find ways to save ISIS, even having Mallory sublet the dry cleaning downstairs to Popeye, played by Clark Peters, who you almost definitely recognize from The Wire. I'm sure you recognize him from other things, but yeah, he is that guy from The Wire. I do wish Popeye got more in general to do, but he's a perfectly fine character, just very minimal engagement with the goings-on. Honestly, this could also be a really solid season premiere, even recalling the finale from last season. Cyril believes he's a sex addict, Pam appreciates the ganja estranja, and before long, Archer's having Krieger reverse engineer the mind-controlled chip so that they can put it into Len and get him to fear Mallory so he gets away from Sterling's mom and leaves Isis alone. Barry keeps pressuring Lana until sure enough, she snaps and hits him so hard she breaks her hand, showing she does have some standards. Len has a new rabbit bud and he and Barry leave defeated. Again, Jeffrey Tambor and Dave Willis are just absolute pros in the world of voice acting, and Barry just might be one of Dave Willis' best performances that's never made a Stone Cold Pick of the Week. Barry isn't a good person, but he's a great character and a wonderful foil for Sterling. A going concern is a fundraising 9 out of 10. Trinette's back. You know, the call girl, right? You remember her? Well, she's back, and wouldn't you know it, she's got a little bundle of Irish joy in the form of the wee baby Seamus, and she is almost positive Archer is the father. So Barry, eager to get revenge on Archer, absolutely offers for Odin to do the blood test pro bono. They take a huge amount of blood from Archer, and he starts to bond with his maybe son Seamus. Everyone is against it at first, but over time, Lana actually starts to want a kid, and Mallory is coming around on the idea. Meanwhile, Archer has stolen Cyril's blood and plans to swap it with his by sneaking into the Odin base. Mallory tries to convince him not to do it, and when the test comes back positive, she's proud of him for taking responsibility. See, the thing about that is, he actually did swap the blood. Cyril is Seamus's dad, which, weirdly enough, Trinette even says Archer isn't his dad later in the season, showing that even she knows he's not the real father. Cheryl hates babies to the point that she will take any out that she sees, and honestly, the episode is fine. Like, Archer bonds with Seamus, and it's just the gang supporting him through this. The episode is necessary to show that their friendships really do run that deep, but it does lag in the middle and feels like it needed an actual substantial B story that wasn't just Lana wanting kids, which I'm sure won't come up in the future at all, don't worry about it. The very important thing is the end, where Archer isn't the dad. He did still do all this to avoid responsibility, but it was never his responsibility to begin with. He just didn't have any faith in himself and acted in an overabundance of caution. Blood Test is a paternal 8 out of 10. The B story. Mallory as the gang try and be more eco-friendly and make adjustments to the office to get government grants for going green. Pam finds out there's a women's bathroom. The bulk of the episode? Archer and Lana are going down to that there Louisiana bayou to get an eco-bad guy trying to blow up a pipeline. One Joshua Gray. Joshua Gray would be played by Rob Pruitt of Red Dead Redemption. Naturally, to hunt someone in the bayou, you're gonna need a special kind of transportation, so Archer gets to live out his gator dreams and drive an airboat that they stole from Remy. Why am I mentioning Remy, the airboat guy? A character that should be totally inconsequential? Oh, no big deal. He's just voiced by Mike Schatz, aka Emery, the Plutonian from Aqua Teen Hunger Force. See? It's all connected. First Dave Willis, now this. It's just good TV. Archer blows the engine, redlining it, and while they're in alligator-infested waters, we learn Archer's 3 great fears: alligators, crocodiles, and brain aneurysms. The episode is really just Lana and Archer properly bonding for the first time in a while and shows that Lana is absolutely the brains of the operation and Archer is just really, really good at winging it. Even by the end, he's stranded at the pipeline and Lana is riding off with Joshua Gray. Archer is growing as a person, but he's still flawed, and that's the important thing. It's a great episode to see that Archer actually does have very real fears and a very real personality. Of course, an abandoned kid would base his identity around tough guy actors like Burt Reynolds. Everything up to this point just makes sense for his character. And again, there's an actual through line of growth. Archer's growth is the one thing that runs as the undercurrent of the season. Last season, it was Mallory's relationship with Nikolai. This season, it's all things that make Archer grow into at least a better person than he was the day before and work towards something better. Even if he is very obviously the active antagonist of this episode, that doesn't stop him from growing as a character and learning something, even if he says he never learns lessons. Pipeline Fever is as well seasoned as a good etouffee, and a solid 9 out of 10. It's wow, it's one of like 2 Woodhouse episodes. And honestly, he really doesn't even need another one. The wee baby Seamus is dumped on Archer by Trinette to babysit when one of Woodhouse's old war buddies comes to Woodhouse telling him there's only 3 remaining members of their old Air Force battalion. They all had a Deadpool set up, so whoever outlived the others would get around $1 million. So, Sterling and Woodhouse team up with his old buddy Bishop to stop whoever thinks they can take out heroes of the Royal Air Force. Archer, to his credit, does leave Seamus with Mallory when he thinks he might be put in danger. It's a small but very necessary detail. We then learn about Woodhouse's past as the assistant of the leader of the battalion and his implied gay lover, or at least there being a mutual attraction to Reggie. When his captain is shot down behind enemy lines, young Woodhouse, actually played by Roy McCreary, runs out to get him, just to inadvertently be the reason he gets shot and taken out. Woodhouse goes into a blind rage and assaults the trenches before going on the run, and we learn that he met Mallory and helped her deliver Archer, even inspiring his name, Sterling. For better or worse, Woodhouse has been more of a parent to Archer than anyone, and for once, Archer actually seems to realize how involved he's been in his life. We also learn more about Woodhouse's habit of, mainlining Sunshine and chasing the dragon, as it were, which will be built on later. Like, is Archer still harsh to Woodhouse by the end of this? Yes. But he still doesn't want him to die. He does mean something to him at the end of the day. Well, turns out the other members of the Tontine weren't being taken out one by one, they were just old, most of them being taken out by accidents or slip and falls. Double Deuce is phenomenal. It really gives the stage to Woodhouse to be this incredibly developed character that absolutely has flaws of his own, but he's found his ways of coping with his life. He's a man that's seen the horrors of war and still kept on fighting in his own way, and continues to fight his own battles. Double Deuce is a high-flying, well-served 10 out of 10. After Cyril costs the boys a game of darts and they call him a failure yet again, he's approached by George Spelvin and his 2 assistants for a very promising job where he can walk away a hero. George Spelvin is played by Peter Serafinowicz, and I definitely said that wrong. Basically, all Cyril has to do is install a malware into the security system at ISIS and then put in the debug code and be worshipped like a god. What could possibly go wrong? Yeah, he's absolutely getting played by George, who's trying to hack the mainframe and steal data. Cyril panics and Archer catches on, forcing Cyril into an impossible deal for Archer to help him get out of this. And so Archer and Cyril go to confront George and his katana-clad assistants to set things right. We also get the appearance of Krieger's digital anime wife, and honestly, this episode is a great flipping of the script of Training Day back in the first season. In that, Cyril was shown as a largely harmless and incompetent, but seemingly nice guy. Now we see he's a loser that was backed into a corner and desperate to be appreciated because he embarrassed himself in front of his dad at a spelling bee. Meanwhile, Archer may bully Cyril and be this cocky, self-absorbed ass of a man a lot of the time, but he's usually not dumb enough to let someone hack into ISIS's computers. Cyril, in no uncertain terms, is a lot of the time just kind of pathetic. Yes, he takes out the computer storage and technically saves the day, but he also ruined the day in the first place. He cleaned up his own mess. We see Archer actually use his investigative skills to just figure out Cyril did it and tries to keep it quiet and even give him his win for a price. It's just, Archer's trying, and here Cyril effectively returns to zero. He does nothing that gives him anything. And it's sad, it's pathetic. He's a lot like Jerry from Rick and Morty. Wonder why that came to my head. Sure, that won't be relevant. But yeah, no, Chris Parnell can play a coward really well. He is very talented at throwing his voice that way. Tragical History is a what? 9 out of 10. Acclaimed actor Rona Thorne is shadowing at ISIS for a new spy thriller she's in. Rona Thorne would be played by Rachel Harris, who you'd probably know from Suits or probably more prevalently, Lucifer. And so yeah, Archer and Lana keep trying to one-up each other to impress her, and Mallory brings Cyril in for some creative workshopping of the script to the film and give it a very unique premise that sees Mallory as the protagonist. I know it's protagonist, follow me. Fun fact, producers Neil Holman and Casey Willis would guest star in the episode. Rona gets Lana to embrace her inner woman, and we actually focus a lot on Lana and her flaws this episode, and how she steadily works her way through accepting who she is and why her relationships fail like they do. That is, until Rona reveals that she's actually a sleeper agent and betrays her. It's very much in the same vein as Diversity Hire, but not. She's a new person in the office, so she's inherently going to be suspicious, but you don't think anything of it until it all comes crashing down. I will say Aisha Tyler is still absolutely bringing it, and the episode genuinely shines because of her and H. John Benjamin's deliveries. The way Archer messes with Lana is just fantastic, and I love Cyril losing his sanity, having to wrestle with Mallory's excessive script edits to make it as self-absorbed as possible. And that's a very important point for Cyril. He is not incompetent. He is a smart person, he's just easily manipulated and will try and weasel his way out of any situation. Rachel Harris does a beautiful job of bringing a ton of charged energy into the episode, and it really keeps the A story together and makes the episode as a whole shine. She's always pumping people up, and as I've said in the past, if you're going to put yourself up against these voice actors that have been doing this, these talents, these powerhouses, when you are a guest star on Archer, you need to be able to match it, and Rachel Harris did a beautiful job. You never suspect anything from her delivery that she could be a sleeper agent. It's a small but necessary touch we'll take for granted next season. That being said, Movie Star is a slept on 8 out of 10. Whoo! Wow. Let's just get into it. Mallory thinks she might have breast cancer and starts lashing out to everyone, even destroying Pam's replica of her farm with a cup of coffee before breaking down into tears. Archer decides to go with her for her second checkup with Dr. Speltz and his nurse Rita, and we find out that, thankfully, she doesn't have cancer. Rita the nurse would be played by Lauren B. Martin, probably best known for her soap opera work on As the World Turns, and Dr. Speltz would be played just absolutely masterfully by Charles Napier, who would sadly pass later the same year this episode came out. This would actually be his last role, and he goes out as one of the best guest voices the show ever got, and it's gonna get some powerhouses later on. If you haven't, I genuinely encourage you to check out The Goods, Live Hard, Sell Hard, where Charles Napier is just incredible. Talk about a movie made with love. Anyway, Archer gets tested for breast cancer, and wouldn't you know it, he actually does have it. Makes sense with all the radiation he's been around, but still, the once invincible super spy has to deal with his very real mortality. Honestly, everyone comes to support him in an earnest way, and he gets matching tattoos with the wee baby Seamus. He's not a perfect guy, but he's trying. He also takes Woodhouse's ticket to Las Vegas to go see his brother Dickie, and he and Dickie have an incredible time while Archer uses Cyril's name to get out of trouble with the cops. Lana supports Archer in his time of need and is even there at the hospital, as is everyone else. They don't have to be there. He's treated them all horribly at some point or another, but there's still that sense of camaraderie. They have been through hell and back together. Even Mallory is there and worried about him, which is an important thing to show. She doesn't want her baby boy to die. She truly does love him. They all love him because deep down, they know he loves them in his own broken way. The group bands together, and as they're celebrating that Archer is cancer-free, he gets the call. The cancer is spread, and he needs to begin chemo. Stage 2 is a 10 out of 10. No question, no notes. It's an episode that balances comedy and drama expertly, and an episode that on its own would be one of the strongest of the season. And yet, it's only part 1. I've championed Hanky Panky and King of the Hill as a celebration of adult animation and what it was capable of in the past. I've said that X show was made for X episode story to be told. There are great episodes of shows, and then there are life-changing episodes. Placebo Effect is... yeah. Archer is on chemo drugs but still has a full head of hair and seemingly no symptoms. Turns out his drugs are basically Smarties and Zima, and the Irish Mafia has been replacing real cancer drugs for placebos. So Archer, now speedrunning chemo with Lana by his side, decides to go on a good old-fashioned Rastafarian rampage. They go to a storehouse and get information from Mikey, played by Darren Criss, who we talked about in Has Been Hotel and is a talented singer and whatever, but it's also still very much he played Bruce Chutback, the man who lacked slacks. Jerry and Bruce Chutback. It's all connected. But Archer is on an absolute warpath that surprises even Lana. Like he is going full revenge and no one truly understands why except for him. We begin to get drug-fueled flashbacks to Archer getting his cancer drugs, where he meets an old lady named Ruth who also has cancer. Ruth is played by Joan Van Ark, who's probably most famous for Knots Landing, but has been acting for almost 60 years, and honestly, it shows. She consoles Archer and doesn't laugh at or judge him for having breast cancer. She looks to him as a brother in arms against a horrible disease. And unbeknownst to her, she's been fighting her aggressive cancer with sugar water. Archer isn't just mad for himself. He's not raging because they put his recovery a few steps back. He's on a rampage because they endangered so many innocent lives to make a quick buck. Ruth tells Archer about her love of Regis and Kelly in the morning, and they share a joint and laugh, all while Archer slips further and further until Lana is forced to take him to the hospital, where they find out Ruth didn't make it. Lana drives Archer to the mob boss's hideout. He wheels the mob boss out into the woods, asks if he saw Regis and Kelly from that morning, and avenges his dear friend. I was in a hotel room in Spokane, Washington with my grandpa for a writing conference the first time I saw this episode on Netflix years ago. It inspired me to be a creative and pursue writing on my own. Placebo Effect isn't a perfect episode of Archer. It's perfect television. The writing is at its sharpest. The characters are their best. You have this genuine care and worry in Lana's character as she drives a rage-fueled rampage machine Archer around. It's said that a piece of media succeeded if it evoked emotion from you. Placebo Effect has made me cry harder and laugh louder than most things I've ever watched. It is a masterful display of writing for an animated series and would only be able to come out at least this far into the series for it to have the gravity and impact it has. There are other amazing episodes to the series. There are other beautiful moments and heart-touching scenes. And the fact that those exist in a show from the creators of a series where a captain gets pinned under a soda machine is one of the most popular episodes speaks leagues about the talent at play here. Placebo Effect is a 10,000 out of 10, and an episode of animation that should be watched by anyone that wants to deeper appreciate what animation as a media form can do. It's true and uncompromised art that should be truly appreciated and treasured. Pam gets kidnapped instead of Cheryl, and we find out that Cheryl is in fact Cheryl Tunt and is super rich. Mallory decides to get Cheryl to hire ISIS to keep her safe, and Cyril takes the chance in the chaos to kidnap Cheryl and try and ransom her to get the money she borrowed from him to literally burn in a dumpster. Mallory works with the kidnappers and tries to haggle for Pam's life down to a measly $5,000 before even sending Ray and Archer to go and get her. But they can't stop bickering over turtlenecks and don't make any progress. So Pam eventually just helps the kidnappers get into ISIS to take Cheryl, and when they do inadvertently save Pam from the attackers, she decides to have some healthy Fight Club one-on-one time with Mallory and teach her the real value of a life. This is a very necessary Cheryl and Pam episode. We learn a ton about both of them. Cheryl is genuinely mentally unstable and does most things on an absolute whim, and Pam has fought and killed in fight clubs before. She knows how to get hit and keep hitting. She's as tough as they come and keeps putting up a fighting chance, which again, they both shine due to Judy Greer and Amber Nash being absolute pros. Like, the episode as a whole is just amazing. To have an episode like this right after Placebo Effect is necessary. It's a great come down that still manages to flesh out the comic relief characters in a very satisfying way. There really isn't that deep of a level to this episode, it's just a comedy and it shines because of it. It's just trying to make you laugh with the absurdity. Everyone has their own little side roles to play, and they honestly handle them beautifully. And it may be small, but this episode never lingers on a joke for too long. Remember, Adam Reed has been doing this for a very long time. He knows how to write conversational comedy, which is incredibly tricky. He manages to balance everyone, and the really interesting thing is, Archer doesn't even feel like the main character of the episode, and it's stronger for it. Even learning about Cheryl's wealth and our first introduction to everyone's favorite ocelot, Babu, elevates the show as a whole and makes El Sequestro a well-guarded 10 out of 10. It's the Monaco Grand Prix! The Grand Prix announcer would actually be late-night legend Craig Ferguson. Mallory cashed out everyone's 401ks to put together a payoff for a disc in Monaco and trusts Archer with the briefcase full of bearer bonds. He leaves with the hotel and, yeah, doesn't get a receipt and then is heavily encouraged to gamble by Benoit, played by returning great Peter Serafinowicz. He naturally gambles it away, Benoit takes the money and runs, and Cyril and the ISIS crew are doing a liquidation sale to get the money back that Mallory stole from them. Lana, Ray, and Archer have to work together to get the money back and save the day. It's really just sort of fluff, but it is a solid episode overall. Of all the episodes of the season, this is the closest one I would say there is to actual filler. You could cut this episode from the season and have very little ramifications. That being said, it's still really incredibly well written, has fantastic jokes, and you never sit down and regret watching it, which just goes to show they wanted to make sure each episode worked, even if it didn't add to the overall through line. And there could be an argument that Archer is being more mature in that he didn't want to inherently gamble, but he also just didn't really gamble before this until he was 4. I would have liked to have seen more motivation for Benoit, but also there was a ton of money that he could have just ran away with. Of course he runs with the money. It feels lacking in places. But even then, it's still capable and shows that they wanted each episode to matter. Even with their normal episode order, Archer would only get 13 episodes compared to a more traditional broadcast animation 22 episode order per season. So they had less they had to pad out and made sure only the best ideas got to the writing floor. I mean, even as we turn the corner on the season finale, there wasn't a single episode I regretted revisiting, and this is definitely no exception. Jus Monégasque is a high-speed 8 out of 10. Archer airdrops into Russia after knocking Ray out cold so that he can confront Nikolai and find out once and for all if he's his dad. When he gets captured, Mallory doesn't have a choice other than hiring an outside agent, Barry. Barry has to go and save Archer. Mallory begs Nikolai to save Archer as Barry and Archer duck and weave agents in the Red Country. One of the agents is actually played by Tom Kane, who played a ton of characters in Clone Wars, including the narrator, and would be a solid addition to the main cast, even replacing George Coe later on as the next voice for Woodhouse. Archer lets Barry seemingly fall to his demise, and as he's about to be taken out, he's saved by a KGB operative that's trying to defect, Katya Casanova, played by Ona Grauer. The episode is a great setup for a part 1, though there isn't a ton to talk about. You can say Archer's a bad guy for what he did to Barry, but they spent most of the season showing that while Barry wants to pretend it isn't true, he's honestly just as bad, if not arguably worse. But he's gone! Barry's only human after all. Sure, he's broken in a hospital, but there's no way he's coming back to be a menace. He's done for. Archer is super into Katya, and they end up heading home. Archer does have a human moment when he's making peace before the soldiers gun him down that really does kind of add to his character, but overall it's just not given a ton of time to build. White Knights is a perfectly serviceable 8 out of 10. And with Archer back in the States, he's determined to marry Katya as he's never felt more attached to someone before in his life. Mallory believes she's a double agent, and there's no way that she could possibly just be in love with Archer and has to be scheming something. Nikolai assures the audience that no, she absolutely is just really into Archer and, you know, the whole freedom and capitalism thing. But she knows too much to be left alive, and so they send a special assassin to take her out. Archer keeps trying to prove Katya's innocence, and we meet Russia's top manhunter, Cyborg Barry. Barry begins hunting down Katya and Archer, and Katya jumps off the roof, sacrificing herself to save Archer, and just kinda completing Barry's mission for him. I personally believe that Katya was introduced too late and taken out too fast to have the proper time to carry an impact. Archer wanting to marry an incredible woman right out the gate? I mean, think about what he went through this season. He had cancer. She helped him escape Russia after he made peace with his makers and thought he wasn't going to get out. He had a scare of almost being a dad, and he found out he was being brain controlled. Of course, the man just wants to settle down and live a good life. He knows how short life is, so it makes sense he'd rush into something like that. But have Katya introduced maybe in the middle of the season. Have her float around and earn everyone's trust, and then have her go out in a blaze of glory. But yeah, no, the season ends with Archer's fiancée in a person-shaped crater atop Krieger's car and Barry doing a victory cheer. This really is Archer's all-is-lost moment, and he's earned your sympathy. He's been able to overcome so much, but when he's right on the cusp of marrying someone he genuinely cared about, she's gone. Of course, obviously, he still cares deeply about Lana, and that's been a whole undercurrent to the episode and the season as well, but his decisions feel fueled by a growth he's earned. Double Trouble is a free-falling 8 out of 10. And there we have it, that's Season 2! Anything you think I was right on, wrong on? What was your favorite episode? Least favorite? Let me know in the comments below. And if you liked what you saw, make sure to like, subscribe, comment, and tell your friends we're out here. Season 2 was honestly probably the best season of the entire show, bar none. It had some of the best writing, the sharpest jokes, and I mean, Placebo Effect alone should get it memorialized as one of the greatest series of all time. It's just wild how much of an emotional core a series that just had to be Always Sunny, but a cartoon, actually has. Archer is a perfect storm of creative, talented minds, meeting incredible voice actors, and you just get something truly magical. And I can hype Season 2 as much as I want, but that doesn't mean Season 3 is bad by any means. We're gonna get some massive guest stars, our first 3-parter, and so much more phrasing. And so I'll see you all next time when we watch with glee in Season 3. Goodbye, everyone. Stay strong, be brave, keep fighting, and know I'm proud of you.